Good morning and welcome back to the Explicit Measures podcast with Tommy, Seth, and Mike. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I guess I should say good morning, good evening. Some people this is not their morning all over the world.
Noon,
It's just our
good
morning.
evening.
Hello, welcome. All right, let's jump into some main items around our topic today. So our topic today comes from, I don't know how to say his name very well.
Sohail.
He's a developer and Microsoft MVP. He actually made a solution, has a great book out, Expert Data Modeling with Power BI, with Pact. Very, very good author, and has some really interesting things to say about the history of BI and how Fabric is impacting our analysts and data engineers or Power BI developers. What's happening to them in lieu of the Fabric experience? We've been talking about this for a while now, and it's nice to start seeing other people kind of starting to pick into this topic a little bit and explore this a bit more as well. So anyways, really interesting article. We're going to go through that today. And then jumping in, let's go right into our news now. Tommy, what article did you find in your news area?
Oh, man, it's nothing better than when my news feed gets something from our very own Alex Powers.
Yes, sir.
And I think...
Summoning the Alex Powers to the podcast.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. This may transform into its own episode. But what Alex is really going through is really the purpose of your lakehouse, really right off the conversation with Tuesday, kind of about like where do people start? So what do we do with our lakehouse? What are some of the best practices? And then like also what services you want to connect to it. So I think we were just talking offline. One of the things is it's always in the service and always has a destination. So just some kind of good principles as you start creating random artifacts.
I always like it when Alex writes things down because one, I feel like he's always got a very experienced eye at looking at why he's saying these things. And what I mean like by that is he's talking to hundreds of really large customers who are dealing with struggles or challenges or working through these complex data issues. He sees it. He sees people building stuff and he says, these are best practices or things you should be doing when you're building these things. Turn off the staging. It's on by default. It should be off. Make sure you're writing every table down to the lakehouse. That's more efficient than having to spin up these hidden non-staged elements sitting somewhere in the data flow. Like, yeah, I agree. This stuff makes sense to me. So I really, really like what his article's discussing here. Any thoughts, Seth, from your side? I mean, are you using a lot of data flows Gen 2 in your world at this point? Or are you still kind of more on the back end? Your data engineering kind of happens upstream a bit more.
Upstream a bit more.
You're a Databricks company, so you've got a larger back end. Like, why would you use data flows if you could just do it in Databricks?
Yeah, that is true. Which is usually why I'm a little quieter on this topic. I'll let you guys talk about it.
I'm still, I got to be honest, I still really, really enjoy data flows. And it's very much it's a great experience, honestly. To me, I think it's a great experience to use and run them. I'm just a little bit miffed. It doesn't work very well with the rest of the system. It just doesn't have the CI/CD capabilities that I want. And it doesn't let me send parameters very easily from a pipeline into the data flow. I think with a couple very small efforts or changes in the system, man, I really wish data flows was like, the number one priority was you should be able to use the doggone parameters that are in a data flow and just send them in from a pipeline. Like, I don't see why that's so hard. That should have been like goal number one, man.
No, not goal number one. I think that goal number one is the performance of it, because what the user interface and what data flows can do, and like just already what they'll do with Power BI, but really trying to incorporate that into Fabric is where the game changer is. We've already done enough cost comparisons and performance comparisons versus that in notebooks. But the ability to transform with a notebook with Power Query, the ability to use that user interface, even if it gets somewhat on par or close to, because right now it's just the gap is so wide.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tommy, but like even as a business user, right, I could probably get away with the performance being a little bit slower. I mean, it has a lot of really neat features in there. I was working in one the other day and I'm like, man, I am really annoyed that the formula bar cannot be larger than 3 lines deep or 4 lines deep. Man, I really want the formula bar to be like as large as I want it to be. I can grab the table, make the table as large as I want. I can see the little diagram of the icons of all the different transformations happening in different tables. Great, all wonderful. I can't make the formula bar any larger. That seems like, and this is a basic thing. Excel, I can make the formula bar as large as I need. I should have the same capability inside the data flow. Come on.
Well, welcome to my world. I've been asking for this with Power Apps for 5 years now. Just have a different formula window.
Yeah,
we did Windows and Power BI.
Oh man, it's a bear. If you have anything that's longer than 3 lines deep, like if you're writing a API call, or if you're writing a complex something, anything that takes a little bit more effort in a single statement, it's just not easy to write. I'm finding myself going more and more to the advanced editor now, just because I can see the code a little bit easier and format it so I can read it better. Anyways, just another gripe of mine. Awesome. Great article. I'll put the article here it's in the description below, but I'll also put it in the chat window as well. Please check out this article and go learn from Alex, the master. He seems to know what he's talking about. I really appreciate his input here. And yeah, I think this is actually a really solid article, and I've observed a lot of the same things as well. So definitely give Alex some love and go check out the article. All right. With that, we have another announcement. We have all been able to be, this is a very nerve-wracking time of year, I'll say that. This time of year, a lot of MVPs get very nervous about, okay, did I contribute enough? It's a little bit of an anxious moment for us. So I've been able to, I got a nice little email yesterday afternoon. They said they were announcing the MVP renewals, because as a Microsoft MVP, you don't just get it. You have to earn it every year. So that way, it's kind of like it feels like an influencer before there were influencers, right? Before there was the word of the influencer, it's like that phrase, are you being a technical leader in this space? So very happy to say, I've heard from Seth. Seth, you're also an MVP. Tommy, you made it as well. Just made it.
So congratulations to all of the other MVPs.
Most certainly.
It's a great group to be a part of. It's humbling. So a big thanks to Microsoft, as you're the bestower of the MVPs,
Sure.
and recognizing all of these fantastic people who we've had the opportunity to meet, and develop relationships with and partnership with. But they amazing work, right? And we talk about it on podcast all the time. And if it's representative of the types of kind of challenging questions or opportunities or fantastic things about Microsoft products that we get to discuss, a lot of those are driven from MVP articles and the way they're implementing some new, thing in a certain way, or their perspective on how we can all be better business intelligence professionals or data people through Microsoft products. So it's a lot of fun.
Totally agree with that one. Excellent. All right, let's jump into our beat from the street. Seth, I think you've got a beat from the street this week.
Yeah, we need an intro on this one too.
Yeah, we do. I need to get together on some audio clips, man.
I don't know. Beat on the street. Yeah, I wanted to. We've talked ad nauseum about hiring, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
talked a lot about this.
Yeah, and I think we recently added a new member to the team, and it just strikes me. Thank you. Because we hired another winner. Yes.
All right.
Somebody, and by that I mean like somebody who integrates well with the team, but brings automatically value, right? It isn't awesome. Somebody who's got to ramp up a lot, you know, that you're working with, you're training a lot, et cetera. It's like the conversation, and when you're in hiring phase, right? You get brief interactions with people. You get to see their CV and their resume, right?
It's challenging.
And it's a real challenge to like compress. Do I really understand what this person is going to bring to the team, who they are as an individual in the span of like a few short hours?
Yeah.
So when you nail it, it feels good. And I think we found another winner, somebody who's kind of, what we do is we introduce people with, fairly straightforward things, right? They're still helping the business. You're altering reports, you're mucking around with things. And this individual just kind of ripped through them and was like, okay, can we get on to the fun stuff now? And I was like,
harder. Yes. Let's go. All right, let's do it.
So I guess the feedback on the beat on the street would be, there is something that has altered the success or the win rate of finding the right people that
Interesting.
is not really intuitive, that I've started implementing, and that is I have not gone against my gut.
Interesting.
So I know that there's a saying, like, professionals who are in HR and things, like, typically there's a time frame, and it's very short. It's like 3 to 5 minutes, I think, or something, where you meet an individual and you know whether or not you're going to hire them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really bizarre. Maybe that's more of from a personality perspective or something, but I know I've read that somewhere.
Interesting.
And I'm not saying like, hey, in 3 to 5 minutes, but at the end of an interview, I usually know. And I'm trying to, like, and it's normally the folks that are very technically answering all the technical questions really well.
Yeah.
But I still don't feel good about it, that have never worked out.
Interesting.
And it's for various reasons. It's not like they don't know what they're doing technically. But yeah, I would just say listen to what your gut's telling you when you're in hiring mode.
I hope you're going to say, like, here's the 3 questions I used. I was looking for the easy button on this one.
Lock the secret.
I added. Yeah,
hopefully you're in tune with yourself, because you're going to need it.
Exactly right. I thought you were going to say, look, if I asked these 6 more new questions, I knew 100% I'd have a rock star of an employee added to the team, and like that would be perfect.
Oh, especially for the more technical driven. Do you actually do any tests with them? I know that's a requirement for a lot of engineers, where they're going to get a code base or something. Is that something that you
pre-test?
Yeah,
like before an interview.
Yeah.
No.
I've seen.
If anything, we do live. We'll do live walkthroughs. And that was actually when I started, and the company was, just in, like, kind of had, I think, just gone through a round of purchasing or something. Mike was with me. We interviewed a ton of people. And I think we honed in on a pretty good kind of methodology. And one of those is, we do a walkthrough. Open up your Power BI desktop. Let's go build some stuff. And the cool part about that is that was right when Power BI added in the sample data set. So there's no excuse, right?
Yeah,
like everybody's got the same thing. And it's 15-20 minutes of, walking through different things, show me how you're doing something. And that alone tells you whether or not a person plays a lot in Power BI desktop. So there's that, depending on the role. There's some simple
things in that level. Like, can you create a measure? Make a measure it's not even hard stuff. It's not like I'm trying to ask you, like, okay,
that's what, so you're not wasting my time here.
Yeah, please use treat as in a deck statement. I'm like, you're like, oh no, it's simple stuff.
Yeah, I would argue if you're trying to stump people in an interview, you're doing it wrong, right? Like they're already nervous enough.
Yeah.
So when you play in, it's like, hey, like I think we also kind of go by this, like, easy, medium, hard levels of questions in the same area. So you can instantly go like, hey, here's a couple easy, and that they got it, and I'll move to hard, right?
Yeah.
Or you struggle a little bit and you never make it into medium, and that kind of is there's a threshold of, like, how you gauge people, etc. It's an art. Different organizations do it, differently, hopefully standard ways for every candidate. But ultimately, you got to ask enough of the different types of questions and have people walk through to just, like, trust but verify, right? As people come
in. You bring up a really good point, Seth, because I think this is actually very much leading into our main article right now, because we're asking questions and interviewing, and we're talking like Power BI desktop, building reports, making some model stuff, right? All these have been very traditional Power BI things. Now we add into the realm of Fabric. And I feel like in a couple of recent interviews for companies that I've been doing, it's been very similar to, like, people have really know pretty well, like, how to manipulate and move around in Power BI desktop, like report side, the report pieces of things. People don't know a lot of the other
Fabric.
It's like, it's more the back end pieces. Like, hey, do you understand what is, data flows? How many data flows have you built in the service? Well, I've played with them, but I haven't done a lot, right? Okay, well, have you done anything with pipelines? Have you played with Fabric? No, we've kind of just dabbled in Fabric. There's not a lot of people, and this is, I think, maybe part of where the article's going here, is the expansiveness of information now that you could potentially need to know is rapidly growing. And even myself, I'm working with Microsoft in the MVP program. There's a ton of teams building a ton of stuff all over the platform. I'm talking with other MVPs. They're like, we don't deal anything with real time. What's this real time stuff? How do we make that work? Like, what's a
Why
good
do they have such a
example
big budget?
of where that is coming from? So it's really like a lot of like it's ramping up very quickly. So yeah, it's very interesting to see like how the skills are adapting and changing potentially. And I really have to understand, like when you're hiring, you need to know like what do you want the people to do in your world? Are you trying to get into Fabric? Are you going to be doing more data engineering? Do you need people who understand Spark? Because you may not need them initially, but if that's the direction you're going to want to find someone who's at least had some experience in that. But that really kind of speaks to training that's not necessarily building reports, dashboards, talking to the business. So now I really feel like there's roles that are very much pulling people two different directions now.
Well, and I think the gut side of it too is if you're in this space, odds are I'm not going to hold your hand teaching you. And probably what you're coming in here for now, 6 months from now or a year from now, you're going to be working on other products or other toolings. And I think no matter where you are or who's coming in, I've seen each person, at least in my internal orgs, that they were, hey, I just do this in Power BI, but then there becomes a need for something else. And that has only become more apparent. So you're looking for also someone's like, were they just monotonous? Are they monotonous? Like I do data, bronze medallion or bronze, silver,
No one talks
gold.
like that.
Yeah.
No one
That's
does.
it. I don't do anything else but the medallion approach.
No, it's like
tell me
I build
about the unique experiences.
What do you do? Oh, I build pages of reports. And how do you pick a visual? Well, I just kind of talk to the business and they tell me what they want. Like that's kind of like the general feel that I get. It's a lot of like lower hanging fruits, I feel like. And as I'm working with these organizations, they're trying to put in Fabric. And I need people who understand or at least has the capability of like dabbling with, understanding, figuring out things of Fabric. Awesome. Let's jump into our main topic then. I think this is a good transition. Let's go into our main article or topic today. Seth, congratulations on the hire. I'm really pleased that you found another good person. I like your non-helpful tip of trust your gut on hiring. That's great for me. Thanks.
Well, I thought you were going to follow it up with like, well, how do I tell if it's just indigestion?
Oh, you'll know. You'll know.
Either now or later.
Exactly. That's funny. All right, so jumping into our main article today, this is from Sohail, and he is another MVP talking through the transition of Fabric and how that is impacting the standard BI developer. I think this is actually a really good transition talking point from hiring to looking for people that have the right skills and what should we be doing, either helping other people on our team or where do we start experiencing, learning about Fabric in a way that makes sense, that builds our skills and makes it valuable back to the organization. Tom, you want to give us any kind of kickoff here, or you have some initial thoughts? We want to kind of talk through this.
Yeah, so I really like the way that this is put together because I think still everyone's a lot of people's fear, especially if they're just hearing about Fabric, if they haven't been able to get started, is what does that mean for my job? Either am I losing it or do I have to expand it at the same pay? And really what he's going through is those different roles that, again, are not universally defined, but he's trying to find both from the business side and both from the developer side, kind of really what's changing, where they're probably going to be adapting. But then I really like that also goes through the history of BI or Power BI at the end. Just kind of showcasing too, like this is nothing new in terms of a industry or a skill set that rapidly evolves.
I'm kind of disappointed in the first section in the history.
Yeah,
it just paints this as this very like smoothly rolled out product, which is probably beneficial. But there's always one point that I love not leaning into, but remembering, which was the trying to launch this into SharePoint
BI
slide that. Like the thing, I was like,
yeah, I know.
It didn't last long. It was probably easy to miss. It was the precursor to the standalone tool that we all know and love today.
I would agree with that one, Seth, because I definitely remember the SharePoint BI and doing. I think it was something like you had to. I'm trying to remember the build pattern here, right? Was it start in Excel, build a Power View and then publish the Power View to the SharePoint BI?
so.
Is that kind of how it worked?
And they got us used to Power Maps.
Power Maps.
Power Maps
yes.
were so
which
big.
did not come along for the ride.
No, did
Right?
not.
And we were like, "Where's this?
Where's the
going?"
maps?
So there's history in here for
And I was also
a little more history.
Yeah, we were so excited when maps showed up. We could put things on a map. You can't do this in Excel.
Yeah.
Like, this was amazing. Well, reality was like, how much data can you really get out of a map? Honestly, like, it's just more like a pretty fancy. It's a fancy, pretty thing. It doesn't really do a lot for most of my reporting. I don't feel like that map visual is one of my most popular visuals. Oh, total side note. Do you guys get like school district metrics back from your schools? Does your school district like send you like reports back about what's going on in your school district? You get like
fancy,
maybe.
no?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Our school district just sent back a report, and I'm like, okay, this is a report, and I'm like looking at the visuals that they're putting on the pages. I'm like, oh boy, I'm really having a hard time understanding this thing. There was one visual that was like boggling my mind, and I had to literally look at it for like 2 minutes to figure out what the heck it was telling me. It was a pie chart, okay, wrapped in a donut chart. Where the
I'm sorry.
Yeah, right.
Chart in the donut chart.
That's what I said. It's a pie chart in the middle, in the donut hole, and then there's a little white space, and then there was a donut chart around it. Okay, so the pie chart, the thing in the middle, was how much revenue and where did the revenue come from for the school district. Then the donut chart told us where all the expenses went. So both of them made up 100%. And look, I know government. There's no way that they're like actually spending all the money or only the money they're getting. I mean, I hope they both add up to 100%, but not quite confident that that's true. But I'm looking at this going like, I'm so confused by this chart. I didn't know, are we trying to compare this portion of revenue with that portion of spend? Or were we just trying to show, here's the whole of where all our money came from, and here's where we're spending it to? And meanwhile, I'm looking at it, the donut chart had two large slices, right? We spend 50% of our money on salaries for teachers. Totally makes sense. People are your most expensive asset. Yep, 100%. Agree with that one. And there's all these little tiny slices. Well, there were so many tiny slices, they had to put little notes on the side. They had to draw leader lines, put the label of what it was, and put the number next to it. And like, these are all like less than 1% of money. I'm like, dude, I really don't. You should just ramp other. It's or just C note, right? And here's a little note that has all the different data. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like, yeah, it was very weird. I had a really hard time reading it. I'm like, man, it needs to be some visual helps across the world here. Like, other people need some. And this is coming from the education system. Feel like they should be able to do this.
Jack Kirby says, sounds like a consulting opportunity, Mike.
Yeah, it might be actually. It might actually be. I was actually contemplating, like, can I just scan the data in? I'll take a picture with my phone. I'll get it into Excel. I'll whip it over to Power BI, and I'll send them a published to web report of the same information. But then I don't need more work, so we'll.
And I don't know how much they pay.
And I don't think they pay very well because I've seen their budget.
Yeah.
And another quick segue, and I don't know why. Maybe it was the way Tommy was describing the intro. Pet peeve of mine. Do you guys have people calling Power BI BI?
The Power
just
BI.
Just hey, the BI report. For some reason, that it grates on my nerves.
Really?
It's not just BI.
I'm using that all the time now.
The tool is. Dude. You are?
No, I'm going to now because you said that.
Like, well, BI is business intelligence. That's everything.
That's everything.
That's all the things. We're talking about a tool. It's called Power BI.
Yes. Yeah. Power BI reports.
Dude, just get with the program, man. That's how people get it.
Whatever. Hey, I mean, on the plus side, if they think of it as BI, then every conversation they ever have, regardless of tool, they'll think Power BI.
Exactly.
Wait, this isn't BI? You're right. Yeah. It's not.
It's more powerful than that. It's Power BI.
Anyway, that was my.
I like the chat. The chat said they should rename it to Power BI, BUI instead of BI. Power BI Premium. That actually works really well if you do Power BI Premium. Power BI Premium.
There you go.
Win it. We're great at marketing here. We can kill it.
Right.
All right, moving on. Back to the article. So we go through the history, and I would agree with you, Seth, on the history part. It's a little light for me on the history of things. I think there was some more drama that was coming out there around Power BI.
I think he does a good job of staying away from the drama that we love to talk about.
True. Well, one of the things I do think that's important that you note in the history of Power BI is its legacy. Like this stuff is built on very well-developed, well-matured systems, and so like I think yes, it's interesting that we're calling out Power Query and we're the Vertipack engine, and kind of the initial 2009 we have Power Pivot and those really impactful business tools. But I really want to say like this is built from a team that has been doing like SQL Server, SQL BI reporting, SSRS, like all these really rich business tools. Like it's been a staple for businesses for eons. I mean, and Excel has been 30 years plus of just solid. It runs businesses. I mean, the companies that I walk into, Excel makes huge multi-million dollar decisions. This is Excel doing this stuff. Yeah. So like, I love, like, I feel like there should be a bit more emphasis on like, look, we're coming from a great heritage of really solid tools. Anyways, that's what my point about that one.
And extended, right? Like, yeah. and I think what I would add to the history here is, yes, business users, Excel, Power Query, advent, if you want to call the advent of Power BI in these tools,
sure,
fine, right? But there were also programs to try to launch Power Query in the enterprise spaces as well. Like I recall, I forget what the original code name or whatever it was, but I do recall being part of an organization that was in engaging in like Power Query in the back end. And then where Power BI went is leveraging those same big engines and services underneath the covers, right? You had Power Query for all the mashup, and then you had the tabular models. And analysis services tabular had been around for years. So like having the underpinning of those technologies that were fully vetted, and then the user, graphical interface as this independent product, like that's what gave me confidence and convinced customers right out of the gate, because you had that solid foundation to move on, and you knew it was going to be good, right? For whatever we had to, develop and move forward on the visualization side.
I like that a lot. All right, let's move on. I think this is another good one here. Another section here. It starts talking about who are the Power BI users, and I think I've done a lot of thinking around this one, especially when I talk with organizations around how to classify different users. There's a thinking that I'm trying to instill here in the community, and we'll see if it kind of gets anywhere. We need more of a black belt, a bar, a threshold. If you look at the adoption roadmap, Microsoft has done an excellent job of really indicating like, hey, you're an organization, you're trying to do things that are Power BI related. Here's a level 100 through 500 of different areas that you should be thinking about when it comes to Power BI. This is the surface area of what Power BI touches. How mature are you in these various areas? And I think this is a really compelling story, but no one's really putting together a really solid view of this in lieu of Power BI and now Fabric related things. So Seth, this is kind of your creation here that you kind of came up with. There's the Power BI skills matrix. We've done an article on Power BI Tips talking about the Power BI skills matrix and kind of thinking through, from a hiring technical Power BI space, what are the kind of things you could know, right? And then you can kind of gauge yourself in those spaces. Are you good at writing DAX? Are you good at making visuals or choosing the kind of visuals that you like or to use on reports? Are you good at administration? Do you do anything around embedding? These are all skills that you don't need to have all of them, but it also does point to like, if there's someone is bent more towards just the report side and you need someone to administrate and do embedding, you would hope to hire someone that has some of that experience and can speak to why I would want to build a whole bunch of security groups and add them to my administration. Or do you understand or know where to go find information on all the admin features? Sorry, you guys were both going to say something. Tommy?
It's already killed me for years, and I've harped about it on this podcast now for 3 years, is that the lack of defined roles or titles that we have. And again, maybe I'm just jealous of my brother-in-law who is in logistics, and he's like, "Hey, I just got promoted. Oh, what are you? I'm a 13 now." Kind of thing. Which,
Okay,
yeah,
great.
it was great kind of thing. He's like, yeah, you can't go from a 9 to a 13. You have to,
Mhm.
and there's all these rules under, kind of under some of these industries. I don't think we'll ever get that granular, but I feel like we're on the other end of that spectrum where I'm a BI pro to Seth's point. Okay, so what do you do? I build reports. Do you do an advanced stacks? No, I just do a lot of visuals. Well, I'm also a BI pro, and I can do all the technical stuff. So we have very much lacked defined roles, and I think what the article is doing well, and I think even more with that skills matrix, is how is it going to play in Fabric? Guys, I just rolled out the skills matrix to a client of mine who's looking to build up Power BI champions, and basically as a stepping stone.
Yep.
So, and again, that's not officially from Microsoft, but it's just a really good reference. And we're going to need this more and more, especially as people begin to play in Fabric.
I am brewing some new ideas.
Ooh.
All right. I like it when Seth brews things.
We'll leave it at that, though.
All right. Okay. We'll leave it at that. So I really like this idea, and I think around the skills matrix piece of this, I'm really excited to continue investing in this thought. I mean, I really do think from a Power BI's perspective, and I'm probably growing. Again, I'm looking at this world from I'm Power BI developers, and we're learning Fabric and expanding our knowledge. I think there's definitely Microsoft has taken the very clear approach that, hey, Fabric is for everyone, right? You are a data scientist, you are a data engineer. Come to Fabric, play well with our data and our business team. Basically, is what I'm hearing them say. So Microsoft is basically, I feel like the Microsoft message is, hey, everyone in data should come and bring their information to the same place, which I think is a very good story, probably the right messaging. But if I look at the user base of Power BI and Fabric, it's a lot of it is starting from the business. So I like to think of it as the lens of I'm bringing business people these other rich tools. And I think, especially as I look at the maturity of Fabric, things that are more mature, pipelines are pretty good. Data flows are still got some way to go. The lake house is pretty awesome. And SQL Analytics endpoint, really like it. Editing data sets in the service, much better for me. So when I look at this, I see a lot of things that I'm comparing what I know as a Power BI developer and adding to that all this knowledge of like these other great tools that I've potentially been building somewhere else. I had another MVP ask me a question. They're like, how do you know, like, what size project, like, what's the threshold? All right, you've got a data project. You have a customer who's going to be doing some data things. What is the size or scale of that project? And when do you leave Databricks and you go do it all in Fabric? What's that threshold for you? And I'm thinking, wow, that was a really insightful question. And I'm trying to think about it in my head, right? How do I quantify? Because a lot of the things that Databricks does are the things that Fabric does, but Fabric doesn't do them quite as well as Databricks yet. It's getting much better, but I'm also a developer and I like the experience of working with the Databricks world of things. So in my mind, I'm trying to think about, is it like, hundreds of millions of rows in tables? Is it, 50 tables plus where I start using, does that my break point? So as it's not going to be a hard rule, I'm not going to say it's going to be, it's just pick Fabric with, check these boxes and this is when you use Fabric, or check these boxes and this is when you use Databricks.
Wait a minute, you don't have the top 3 things?
I don't. I know it's kind of a gut feel.
Just like I don't. Well done. All
right, good. Yeah, like that.
Okay.
But to your point there, like, it's what I feel like I'm saying is the threshold for me to bring larger and larger projects to Fabric is increasing. Like the ability, like more and more companies are going to get the features they need, get the capability, have the speed they want, and do it at a price point that's reasonable, where they can just, we don't need other tools. We don't need Snowflake. We don't need Databricks to do these projects or for our company. We can solely live only in the Power BI ecosystem, and it'll have enough compute and enough horsepower to do everything you need. And that barrier, that threshold is quickly moving more toward, like, I'm getting a bigger part of the pie for Fabric, and I'm eating away some of those opportunities that would potentially have been Databricks. Does that make sense what I'm saying there? Like, it's kind of it's a gradient scale that's kind of occurring.
Yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down,
Okay.
and I agree. I think in really broad strokes, right?
Yeah.
The fabric has a lot going for it from the standpoint that it's a unified platform, right?
Yes.
And
100%
we've
agree with that.
talked ad nauseum
Way
about
easier.
like the benefits of building something like that.
Mhm.
They're building something like that. So
That's the point. That's why they're doing it.
customers have only had options to use Delta tables in one location,
Yep.
or Snowflake tables of, and I don't know what they use over there, but
Yep. Iceberg.
those tools, right, are used for different purposes,
Mhm.
right? So in some cases, maybe a transition can happen today, right? Like Fabric offers all the features and more that is compelling enough for organizations to roll into it because it's got a great story, and there are no issues that they're going to encounter by moving. In other cases, there's going to be more challenges, and some of the features that aren't in Fabric yet will be in the future, but they aren't something that we can move to right now because of extremely large data sizes, or certain features that are leveraged in other tools that aren't available, and those are the blockers, right? So
Mhm.
I think the nuance is, yes, there's going to be opportunity across the board for organizations to start leveraging Fabric, and they should.
Yeah.
Mainly because of all of the facets of bringing these groups together in a way to produce better outcomes faster. And every organization is interested in that, right? Like, I can get if I do Fabric, you can build this thing faster, and I can get insights that will impact the business weeks ahead of time. Yeah, and there's the more use cases, and this is why Alex joining a few podcasts ago.
Mhm.
Throwing out those use cases where it's like comparative analysis, like, hey, here's how long it takes to set up these
Yes.
tools
Great.
and implement these new solutions. That estimate or that exercise was done in our experience with working with other customers, and it took 2.5 weeks. Fabric, we did the same thing, and it took 2 days.
This is huge.
Those are the stories that win, right?
Yes.
At the end of the day.
Totally agree with
They're
that.
specific to a particular use case and a business need, and things like that. So as Fabric gets stronger, I think the case for that becomes more compelling for those different use cases.
This brings up an interesting, maybe conflicting question here. Oh, sorry, Tommy, you're going to say something. I apologize. Go
No,
ahead.
we actually may be on the same page here, so we'll continue.
Okay. Well, maybe not. We'll see what I'll say my thing, Tommy. Like, no, that's not what I'm thinking at all.
Not even.
So, your point around Alex Powers bringing up the ease of getting some of these solutions implemented and started, and I totally agree with you. And I think honestly, I observed very similar the same thing. Right, I'm seeing a lot of the same language around making it easy for you to bring a process you used to be doing that could take a long time, and now you can do it in much less time. Awesome. My question here around is, or the thought I'm thinking is, that always comes at some sort of potential cost, right? So what I've always observed is the more custom stuff you build is usually you can build a cheaper, less expensive solution because you're trimming all the fat away from all these other things.
Mhm.
Like, for example, right? I could use a Power Automate to bring some data in, or I could use a pipeline to unparse a JSON file and flatten it out. But if I used an Azure function, more technical, more specific, but I could run thousands of functions for the price of one pipeline run, right? I mean, the cost of them are just not even comparable. One of those things are extremely cheap. The other one comes with some additional overhead. Like, I got to spin up some machines. The Power Automate's got to run. There's a runtime that goes with it that needs to be used. And so there's a little bit of extra bloat potentially compute wise that's costing you some more money. So I love this analogy, but where I'm thinking through is there's usually a balance of value to money, right? When you have a great transition from, it took me a month to do this and now I can do it in a week, makes sense. But is there a longer term running cost of that's affecting that solution that we're not considering yet? Or is there a value or spend that we're increasing because of that speed? Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally does, and that's where a lot of my feedback has gone
Okay.
in certain aspects, because
Yeah.
especially when you move into the cloud realm, there is and Azure. It is not easy to get your hands around costs to the level that you want to as an organization. It's just not. There's a ton of work you got to do it.
Yeah.
And then you throw in new services. So it's very easy to implement a service, but when you're talking about wide varieties of data volumes, or different business needs and the things that you can pump through these services and systems.
Yeah.
I think that is one of the challenges that I would like to see more of or the challenge that has to be overcome, like you're outlining, is it takes a very long time to dial in costs and knowing exactly which levers to pull make sure that you're operating a very streamlined system in the back. The challenge for Fabric is going to be how do you give confidence to customers that they don't have to start over again, right? Like if I'm gonna change my platforms of data movement and transformation, and it's taken me this long to get to this point, I can't just move onto new stuff because I'm going to get thrown into this realm again of I don't know how this is going to behave. I don't know what the compute costs are going to be. I don't know how that's going to leverage my capacity, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a pitch in here where it's like, hey, I'll go do this for you, but I need you to throw a bunch of like free stuff this way, and then we'll do a comparative analysis across these things or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's some challenge in there because you're not talking insignificant amounts of money when you have really big data volumes. And I think that's going to be just the long kind of pull where organizations that have large data in frameworks that are leveraging other tools, you have to do your due diligence. You have to nail all this stuff down because at the end of the day, if you're going to make a recommendation to shift tool sets, the business doesn't care. What the business cares about is, can you estimate, can you budget, can you align existing systems to net new? What they will care about is if you just move stuff and all of a sudden your costs spike, or
they will.
In a better version, they go down. But like how often does that happen?
So, going a little off of just the price point of view, I think one of the things that's actually going to help, at least the business side, get more familiar or a little more defined roles is if everyone isn't finally playing in the same space. And I think this is actually going to really help. Like, oh, you do this.
I agree, Tommy.
There's going to have to be a lot more collaboration because every BI team I've talked to, and it is a BI team, right? It's not a Power BI team. I just want to make sure. But every BI team I've talked to,
no, it's just a BI team. We're just going to call it BI.
I just want to make sure they only use Power BI
team. It's just a BI team. For Seth's sake.
I just want to make sure I'm not stepping on toes here. So
no, you're not. That makes sense because we're talking Fabric, all of BI. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Dang it!
But they build BI reports, so
exactly.
But they might have done the analytical side of the semantic models, but a lot of times the data engineering side was another part of the company. It wasn't necessarily even underneath them, and just like, hey, if we want something, we have to submit a ticket. We don't know when, and they're going to get back to us. And it's very much even the business intelligence people are still working as customers to the data engineers. But now, if Fabric is really kind of allowing everyone to kind of, I guess, see everything in the same space, I think it's going to really open people's eyes to, one, those defined roles, but then two, now I can ask that person a question on why did they do this, because I can see it. Now there's actually going to be that insight where there's not a curtain up between the different teams.
I think you're bringing it onto a really good point, Tommy, that I think I resonate with, and especially when I talk to teams, is the idea is like we're all playing in the same environment.
Yep.
Security is unified across all the artifacts. The security system of workspaces and down to semantic models and even lakehouses now, you can now secure things down by user specifically to different teams. This is immensely huge. And one thing I don't think fully leveraged yet, and maybe it's just more about time in being able to leverage this, is I'm not using as many shortcuts as I thought I would, honestly. Like, but that's, to me, that's the secret sauce of a lot of this is if you have access to other lake houses, you can shortcut your data across different teams. And so now you can have central teams designing, this is our master data. This is our, like, you can more, I think there's a apprehension maybe in the business that I observe of like letting other teams utilize the data. Well, what if they do it wrong? What if they calculate something incorrectly? What if they don't do it right? Well, someone's got to take responsibility for something. So either we keep all the responsibility centralized into a single team that it becomes the BI team for everything in the entire company, or we start opening this up and saying, look, I'm going to give you responsibility. Here's the expectations of playing in this new world. This is what modern, quote unquote, self-service looks like. I mean, everyone talks about the self-service buzzword and terms. We have, like never before, I feel like this is really good self-service stuff that we can be doing.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm getting a little bit passionate about that, I guess. I surprised myself.
I surprised myself.
You know, it's like when you hiccup and you're like, oh, I didn't. We're surprised, shocked. Like, oh, I wasn't going to get a hiccup there. Like, I surprised myself about that.
This conversation is, I don't know why it's taken me this long to figure this out, like, or draw the connection. One of the, okay, slight segue. It'll come back.
Okay.
Jira is a big project management, like a tool, right? Like helps teams streamline, work together with product to develop requirements, stories, execution, right? Within this platform, there are many, I'm not going to go into like uber detail. Most teams work within a project, right? They have their own code. Like, here's my project. I have my backlog. I have all the things I need. What I was able to do was configure things in such a way that, yes, I have my own project, but I also can ingest or have visibility into every other project, right? So as there are business intelligence needs or data needs in other projects, which are essentially other teams, right? There's certain configurations you can do, different views to set up so that all of that work stream comes right into my purview, right? Like, here's the stuff I need to do. And if you think about it, like, Fabric is that same sort of thing for different teams. And I think I've been wrapped around, just because I have these different workspaces that open up the doors for all of these capabilities to different teams. It doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden shifting the organizational structure. It just means that, to your point, Tommy, if data engineering still needs to help out a business unit, it just means that rather than a central place that team does that, they may pop into that workspace, right? Because that's where the business works. And you have technical resources doing things in that workspace. And if the business person wants to look at things, they can, but that's where the work is done. And then they pop out and they go to a different workspace or a different team, right? And ultimately it could be on the same data set, but like, architecturally speaking, it gives a lot of leverage points because you're understanding how how Fabric is growing in the organization, and there should be some thought behind it. But in reality, these same teams, I think, could coexist as they are today. You're just working where the data is for everybody, right? And I think that's the real value in here, where rather than maybe like some of my initial thoughts being like, man, like, what are you doing? Like, does that mean like we're carving off DEs into different business units? And it's taken me a while, I guess, to resonate and get along the same. It's the same thing. Like, no, you're just helping out all these different teams in the areas that they work or could have visibility into, which tightens the relationship, right? Like, hey, you're the SME. Okay, listen, look, we're in your workspace. We're in your stuff. Here, we're going to go modify this thing. Here's the business logic. Boom, right? There's no question. And I think over time that has the potential of doing what we would hope, a data culture initiative would do, which is your engineers are closer and almost kind of teaching business, and business is closer and almost kind of teaching engineers in the same spaces on the same data sets all the time. And people learn and grow. Yeah. Because they have access.
Correct.
And they can see.
This
right?
is exactly my point of like why Power Query was so revolutionary for me. Like I could use it in Excel, I could use it in Power BI, and I could say, "Hey, IT team, look at my steps. I've documented how I get this raw data in step by step. Yeah, you may not understand how to write the M code, but at least you can see my logic. Like join here, merge this, delete that column. Like this stuff gets complex. Like it gets challenging. Like because the data has never. I've never been on any project 100% with 100% certainty. Every project I've been on, when there's a source system sending data to somewhere else, none of the source systems have the data in the shape that needs to be ready for reporting. Doesn't even have to be star schema. It's just not shaped correctly. There's missing things in tables that I have to join or merge or clean, or something's wrong. It's always wrong. And I've heard a couple customers come in and be like, "Well, it's all ready to go. We're just pulling it out of here and we're going to just report on it." Like there's where's your black box? Where's the black box in the middle of the process that shapes and conforms and fixes data? You're going to need it. And whether you're going to be doing it in Excel with people or automate it with Power Query or automate it now with all these other tools, notebooks and pipelines, that's huge. Like that's amazing now. And I feel like really excited about this because I feel like I'm getting to a place where I'm seeing patterns. Like you do things enough, at some point, you start seeing a pattern evolve.
Yeah.
And I was leaning on other people's patterns initially when I started doing all this stuff, like Databricks, learning from other people, the Lakehouse, the bronze, silver, gold, blah, blah, blah. I feel like now I'm seeing my own patterns. Like I'm seeing enough of the work repeating itself that I'm like, yeah, this is common. You have a table, it's sending you data. It either has an updated date or it doesn't. You either can see deletes or you can't. I have solutions that solve both things. We can figure it out. Like we know, like there's now new patterns evolving that I think are becoming clearer to me, and I'm able to observe them and say, we now know how to solve for this. Here's 2 or 3 ways you can solve for that problem, which makes the most sense for your company. This is getting exciting to me. And a lot of these patterns, I think, I'm trying to be very vocal about the patterns I see back to Microsoft so they can build quick win tools like data flows, but do them like using pipelines or other workloads inside the Fabric system. Sorry, total random side note. Did you know that the little brick that you click to make a data flow, or the little brick that you click to create? Yeah. Did you know each one of those things are called a workload? Did you know that?
Everyone is called a workload.
Yeah. So when you click on the lake, like I'm going to create a lake house, that brick that you click on to create the lake house object in the little menu, when you click on, that's a workload. Microsoft has made every single, real-time analytics, the Custo database, every single one of those things, Microsoft, I didn't know this. This was like something that was new. Every one of those are called a quote-unquote workload. That's the name they use. There's a team developing these things called workloads.
And that's the same thing that the custom workloads that they're also going to be.
So there's the tie-in. So I'm heavily looking in these now third-party workloads that could be added into things. And I think, like, let me tease your brain here for a second, because I think I'm starting to see the writing on the wall here on some of these things, right? We've got all these cool workloads for pipelines. We have, the SQL endpoint. We've got Power BI things. We have Data Flows Gen 1. We have Data Flows Gen 2. These are all workload things. We have all the real-time analytics. All these workloads. Imagine what your business can do if you can understand how to build your own workloads imagine whatever your company's name is, right? Your company name workload, where you integrate your company proprietary data for users of your systems. Like workloads could be huge. I mean, you could think about all the different really interesting things that companies could extend, bridging the gap between your company and a different company. That could all be bridged now. Hey, you know what? We're not going to send you data flat files anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to have a workload that exists somewhere in the Power BI ecosystem that you can just go get for free or whatever, buy a license from us, or hey, you're a valued customer, we'll give you a key, it'll just work. Boom. Now instead of you dealing with all the muck of data for the customer, you tell them, go buy a Fabric something, go get it, show up, add our workload, sign in, data appears. Like, wow, this literally could be a product for people or for companies that are making data stuff.
You are describing a product of a different company right now.
Oh, I am? I'm seeing that. Like that feels like something we should be doing. Like these workloads should be those products.
It's similar to the same stuff on Marketplace right now with
Exactly.
different apps and things that you can leverage.
Exactly. Same thing. Same concept. Yeah. Except it's all built in. Like, to me, the neat thing here is like the epiphany I'm having now, and I'm really diving into this topic, is by building the workload, I have access to your lakehouse. I have access to other things that we can automate and push into that environment. So like this, yeah. So chat's lighting up here. Yeah. Manufacturers of external sites, representative and agent, like everyone's got a website. Everyone's got Google Analytics data.
External sales.
Yeah, external sales stuff. Boom. It just shows up. You could just have things from your company that just appear there and makes it really easy for people to integrate with your data things. Anyways, I think this is a really interesting topic. And the workloads, I think many large data companies or companies that deal in data, they should seriously look at the idea of workloads, because I think it could be a really advantage selling point for your business and your products that you make.
I feel like that's another Mikeism. Workloads. Boom. Like, who is that chef who always did boom?
Oh, is that
the emerald
hand motion?
Yeah,
like on the TV.
Spices.
Like, boom.
Yeah, boom.
Boom.
Spices.
Workloads. Boom.
Workloads. Boom. I don't know. I'm
good points. No, yeah. I like it.
We'll see.
I like your thoughts.
We'll see where it goes. I don't know where it's going to land on ultimately, right? And so, my team's trying to scale up on how do we build workloads? What can we do with them? If this is something, if Microsoft is using workloads today to build all their internal tools, data flows, everything else, right? Why wouldn't we want to leverage this as other businesses? And what potential products could come out of that?
You want to talk about getting archaic systems out of there? Finally, all in one place.
You're going to build the SSIS workload?
No, trust me. That is the tip of the iceberg, my friend. There's some tool that they bought 15 years ago that's only local, but the company relies on their data going through it.
You're going to build the MySQL workload?
I'm going to build a CRM system that's going to be fully integrated. So some POS.
You know what I'm finding? Like, never mind. It's such a rabbit hole. I'm not. Every time you triggered me, CRM. You said CRM, and then my mind just goes boom.
Rabbit trail.
Yep. Not gonna take it.
When's the Salesforce workload show up? Right. When does that happen? Right. That's what we need here. Let's get all the data out of there. Like, you can go ahead and use Salesforce, but then now all the data just shows up in Fabric. Now you can set up jobs, synchronize your contacts, get everything just landed in the lakehouse, like all that. Right? Am I wrong here? Like, this is where's the SAP workload, right? There's going to be these things that, like, you're going to need this stuff to kind of like link in and suck the stuff out. Like, this is a really good opportunity. Yep. Maybe you don't go to your Salesforce page anymore. Maybe you go to Power BI and log in there, and you do all your Salesforce work right in the workload that's there.
No. Now you're going too far, because
just kidding.
Because ultimately,
I'm going to put Tableau in a workforce.
Those are production platforms to solve business needs for areas like commercial groups, right? So it's like, why would you go recreate all of that in a reporting an interface for analytics? Because you can. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. Then let's do it. Let's do it. I'm
sign me up.
Let's just pay for that product, not use it. Pull the data in. We'll rebuild it in here.
Exactly. See, you got it. You got my vision.
Why would we do that? Workloads. Boom.
Yes, we're done. My work's done here.
That's why.
I love it. Anyways, we'll bring it back here to the article. I think the last piece here, I think we should probably wrap here on this, because we're getting kind of close to the end here. How does the Microsoft Fabric affect the developers and analysts, right? I think this is a great summary of like what we've been talking about on the podcast for a while, right? Developers, the ones that create reports, right? They don't just have to create reports now. They now have extensive experience or explorations into these other really rich tools. We've been talking about this for months, like how, again, it's the view of, let's think about the Fabric opportunity as we're growing the experience, we're growing things that are inside that space. I also think there's another neat point here made around the self-service analysts, who I think was very relevant. I got to be honest, there's not many people that I have found who dislike notebooks and their experiences. I think a lot of people, people are comfortable writing code with good examples. And when people start using notebooks, people love it. Honestly, I think there's been very few people that I've found, especially in the technical spaces. If you're a bit more, if you're a deeper than just you give me a report and I need to consume everything from a report. If you're writing DAX, if you're writing SQL code, man, you're going to love notebooks. You're just going to like them. And if it's the place to do self-service, picking out a bunch of tables, stitching some stuff together, like it's going to be amazing. Yeah, it's going to be super, super important to do that. So I'm really, really excited about the self-service analysis part and seeing what that grows into, because I think you're going to actually have a whole bunch of people using notebooks, lakehouse data, and that's going to be incredibly important for you to leverage as you just go explore what's in your data. Because I think a lot of times we don't know what we don't know in our data. We have to figure out what's in it. And so that's a great exploration tool.
And analysis, yeah.
Cool. Anyways, I'll pause there. Any other final thoughts, Tommy, Seth?
No, overall, I think great summary article that brings together a lot of the different areas for folks to recognize and see within.
All right, looks like that one's
done. Oh, I love it. That's the best thing he said all day. So, all right,
all right, Tommy, what's your final thoughts here?
I can continue with it. I know, honestly, I think I feel like some of the things we've been saying over and over, but I think that just shows how excited we are we are beginning to bridge the gap and finally and he's gone. Okay. So, now I know what it feels like to be on the other side of that. No, just we keep saying it, but it's true. We're continuing to bridge the gap between all the other engineers, all the other skill sets, and actually having that visibility and finally fostering some communication. Yeah. Our implementation guides are in a content lifecycle management that we're going to be doing every other Tuesday. I think is going to be so important in this too, where one of the exterior things that can happen is frustration because there's too much content. So I think that's a big part, especially as we talk about self-service.
You're right, Tommy. We've been overwhelmed. We've been buried in a very deep pile of new knowledge that we had to kind of dig ourselves out of here. And this is not going to be a 3-month, maybe not even a 6-month. This is going to be like a multi-year learning experience of figuring out what works well, what doesn't work well, building new patterns, figuring out how to best leverage this from the business users. And again, I think this is a great opportunity for us. We're giving, again, most incredible amounts of power. We can do really neat things. And this is the foundation of better analytics. You can't do AI. You can't do generative AI. You can't do even just general statistics or algorithms. None of this stuff works unless you have the data to put it somewhere so you can start from it. This is the foundation of getting the organization to bring everything to the lakehouse, to bring all the information to common places where we can start working on it. So anyways, welcome back, Seth.
Lake. Yeah. Just remind me. I'll talk later.
Excellent. With that, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. This has been a great conversation. Sohail, thank you very much for the article. It was really good. We really enjoyed your article. Very insightful and gave me some new things to think about. So I really appreciate it. Go check out his blog. Go get his book, Expert Data Modeling with Power BI. I'll see if I can snag a link here really quick for everyone, just so that you can have it as well. Go snag the book. Really good book as well. Would highly recommend it if you're going to go dig deeper into Power BI. So the link to the book is there as well. That being said, Tommy, where else can you find the podcast?
So you can find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to subscribe and leave a rating. It helps us out a ton. Do you have a question, an idea, or a topic that you want us to talk about in a future episode? Well, head over to powerbi.tips/podcast. Leave your name and a great question. By the way, we have so many mailbag coming in that we're beginning to schedule them out. And finally, join us live every Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 a.m. and join the conversation on all of Power BI Tips social media channels.
I feel like we should stop sending. Tommy, you need to change your phrase here. You need to stop asking for questions. You need to start asking for money. That's what we need to start doing. Yeah, send us $5.
Yeah, then we lost the MVP.
If there's so many questions coming in, we can't handle them all. We're having to schedule them out. Just kidding. Just send us questions. This is all free. We're not gonna charge you for this one yet. Just kidding. We're not gonna ever do it. Thank you all very much. We'll see you next time.